appreciate everybody being here today. We've seen a significant increase in crime in Washington, D.C., and I hear time and again from members of the D.C. Hill community, members, staff, and visitors who share with me their concerns that they have as crime has increased dramatically in Washington, D.C. And so before we begin, I think maybe we're just going to roll a 1-minute video to set the stage about what we're talking about.
Violence in the district claiming the lives of at least 3 teenagers since Friday.
A deadly outbreak of violence. At least 4 people lost their lives in overnight shootings incidents.
They're scared to leave their homes, and again, they're just asking for something new to be done.
We're in danger. Our women are in danger. Our kids are in danger.
There was shooting here, numerous robberies at the Walgreens, shootings on 6th Street, some stabbings, drug activity, muggings.
Triple homicide on Saturday. On Sunday, another shooting near Wilmington Place that left 1 man dead and another in the hospital. On Friday, a double homicide in Adams Morgan.
Senate staffer was stabbed multiple times and is now fighting for his life. The victim, 26-year-old Philip Todd, works for Senator Rand Paul.
Residents and business owners are furious at the violence that they are seeing.
Last year, robbery up 156%, larceny up 100%, aggravated assaults up 35%.
D.C. police report violent crime is up 39% citywide, homicide 28%, robberies 67%.
Saying this crime is out of control and it's time to call for backup.
I appreciate everybody coming here today. I'd ask a question just of our audience, because this is the Capitol Hill community. How many people at some point during the past year have felt unsafe for their personal safety in Washington, D.C.? Overwhelming. How many people know someone who's been a victim of a crime in Washington, D.C. over the past year? How many people know someone who had a car stolen in Washington, D.C. this year? How many people had a car stolen in Washington, D.C. this year? At least 2 hands. That tells you that the crime that's taking place in Washington, D.C. is directly impacting those at the in the Capitol Hill community. It impacts visitors who are coming from places like my home state of Wisconsin to bring their family to see the nation's capital. It's impacting members of Congress, and it's impacting staff, and it's something I think we have to become pretty serious about to make sure that, one, we're looking at the policies that are in place that are impacting crime in Washington, D.C., but 2, that we're also making sure that members, staff, and visitors have the tools that they need to be able to stay safe in Washington, D.C. I'd like to start with our friends at the House Sergeant at Arms office, Mr. Beckett and Mr. Cook, if you can. Just give us a few minutes, introduce yourselves, what we're doing, and what members, what staff and visitors can be doing to keep themselves safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Larry Cook. I'm the Director of Police Services for the House Sergeant at Arms. And the House Sergeant at Arms, one of our, if not the primary responsibility that we have, is facilitating safety and security for members of Congress, staff, the public, anybody that's on Capitol Hill. While we are fortunate to have Capitol Police as, a large federal law enforcement agency that's tasked with protecting members, staff, and the public, there are still dangers. There are many times that crime that originates off of Capitol campus spills over onto the campus. I'll let our friends with Capitol Police get into gun recoveries and stuff like that, but they're taking guns off the street. There certainly are dangers that resources are never enough. With ever-increasing threats to members of Congress, and that being, one of the primary missions of the Capitol Police, and one of the things that we look to mitigate. When resources are drawn to your regular, everyday crime, to your violent crime, it makes that mission, all the more difficult. So, the support that Capitol Police gives to members, the interaction and the crossover between Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police, it becomes ever more difficult with the general crime. Protecting the Congress is difficult enough. Dealing with a spike in crime just makes it that much more difficult. That being said, there are things that members, staff, the public can do to increase their overall safety. On the Hill, there are officers usually everywhere. Know them, know where they are, know that if something happens, know where to go. There are mobile duress stations that will call 911 for you. Know where those are. know where your safe havens are. If you're a staff member, know your policies, emergency procedures, stuff like that. Take up the training, take up all of the resources that the Sergeant at Arms office and Capitol Police have available for you, whether it's security awareness briefings. For members, we have residential security programs. We can, not be everywhere. Capitol Police can't be everywhere, but we have programs that can try to expand that footprint to cover you wherever you are. And please take us up on coordination efforts that we have. The Sergeant at Arms office is the bridge between members, staff, the community, and Capitol Police. Help us help you. If there are events that you have, if there are places that members and staff are going to be congregating, let us know so we can bring in the appropriate resources from Capitol Police, reach out to Metropolitan Police. We can't help facilitate safety and security if you're not reaching out to us to request it. So appreciate Chairman's efforts and inviting everyone here today and putting this together. Thank you very much, sir. Look forward to questions later.
Thank you very much. Mr. Beckett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to be here to speak with you. As Larry said, our office, we coordinate security programs for not only members but for staff. One of the things that we really want to touch on is getting to know the security apparatus here on the campus, knowing where your duress buttons are, knowing your local outreach officers here within the House building, being able to form those relationships and make contact so that you feel comfortable in reporting things. My background is in threat assessment, and one of the things that I would say is that no reporting is too small. If you feel uncomfortable about a situation, if you feel uncomfortable about an encounter while you're up here, please make sure that you report that, whether it's to the uniform side of the House or it's to the threat assessment. We want to run all of those things down because our job here is to facilitate that, and we want to be able to mitigate some of those issues before they even get to the campus. As Larry stated, we have a lot of programs here. The security awareness briefing, I highly recommend that you all take part in those. We will facilitate those as many times as you'd like. If you'd want it in a smaller setting where it's a little bit more intimate, where we can have a lot of Q&A, we're happy to do that. The Capitol Police is a great partner in that program, and we can really get into specific instances for you to be able to ask those questions that you might not feel comfortable asking in a very large setting. So at any time, we are available to coordinate those things. One of the things I would highly stress is being aware of your surroundings. We all know that there are certain times a year that we see an uptick in some criminal activity around the holidays, summer breaks for some of the schools, and those type of things. Try not to be a target of opportunity, because that's what happens quite a bit out on the streets. Whether you're at Union Market or somewhere down on Pennsylvania Avenue, if you're plugged in, you're really paying attention to what you're plugged into, right? You're not paying attention to your actual surroundings. So we'd recommend you to taking at least one ear out and just making sure that you're aware of what's going on. Our office is available for any questions that you might have, and we welcome the opportunity for any questions at the end. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do we need to pull the mics closer? Okay. Well, so as we go, we'll pull the mics closer just because it's easy for us to hear, but we're going to be broadcasting this across the Hill community. I just want to make sure for those that watch on video, they have the opportunity to hear the benefit of everybody's remarks as well. As chairman of the Committee on House Administration, I've made a real commitment to making sure we depoliticize Capitol security. We've held a number of hearings on this topic, working with our friends of the Sergeant at Arms Office as well as D.C. Capitol Police. We've held a number of hearings, both with the chair of the Capitol Police, the Inspector General, and with the full U.S. Capitol Police Board in conjunction with our colleagues in the United States Senate. And I'm really appreciative of Inspector Erickson and Inspector Mitchell for joining us here today from the U.S. Capitol Police. Could you just take a few minutes to share your view as to the situation and what staff, visitors, and members could do to make sure that they can stay safe in D.C.?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the security briefing here. I'm Inspector John Erickson with the Capitol Police. I'm the acting commander of our Uniformed Service Bureau. I'll give you an overview of the services we do provide to the visitors here and also our stakeholders on Capitol Hill. We operate in concentric rings of security. Our outer perimeter is made up of our patrol vehicles, which you see out and about. They will patrol the extended jurisdiction of the Capitol Police, as well as our primary jurisdiction. They're equipped with Metropolitan Police radios in their vehicles, so they can monitor anything that is coming towards the hill and also assist Metropolitan before it even gets up to the hill. We also have patrol vehicles that fall back into our middle perimeter, and that's patrol vehicles, that's motor patrol, that's mountain bike patrols. We also focus on our lots and parks, which are in our middle perimeter. All our lots that the staff park in are equipped with emergency call boxes. Them call boxes are also very lit at night, and if something does happen where you have to activate that, we have a camera system that will pull up that camera right at that call box right away, so it monitors the parking lots there. Also in the mornings and the evenings, we send out extra patrols into our lots and parks and around the metros. Certainly this time of year, as the Sergeant of Arms talked about, where it starts getting darker a little earlier, so we put more lighting in the parks and additional patrols for when people are walking to and from the metro or even to the lot. In them situations, if you feel that it's late at night and you're working, you certainly can call any one of the Capitol Police Division offices here on the House side, and they will certainly provide an escort to you to your car or even through the garage if you need. Our inner perimeter is inside the Capitol, the buildings themselves, the Congressional buildings. We have exterior pre-screeners at every entrance of the building to help monitor the area before you even come in. Once you get in, everybody is screened, along with all their packages and bags and all deliveries that come to the Hill. Each of the buildings have dedicated building patrols for your building specific that are available for any calls that go out. All of your offices, which you do know, and Mr. Beckett spoke on it, are equipped with duress buttons. Please familiarize yourself with where that button is. And certainly if something happens there, it goes to our communication system, and there's immediate response from multiple building patrols to come up and take a look at what is actually going on. We also have our cameras on the outside. So like I said before, outside the Congressional buildings themselves, they're focused on the parks, they're focused on the streets that are in between all the buildings, and them are monitored 24 hours a day. We do have 24-hour response for anything that might come up. So I'll be free to take any questions after the opening remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Inspector Mitchell?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Chairman, thank you so much for having this, hosting this briefing with this very important issue concerning violent crime in Washington, D.C. I'm Inspector Janita Mitchell. I'm the acting commander of the Protective Services Bureau. The Protective Services Bureau encompasses the Dignitary Protection Division, which houses our agents that provides protections for leaders of Congress as well as any other members of Congress as deemed necessary by the Capitol Police Board. Our investigations divisions, which houses agents who investigate suspicious persons, suspicious activities, threats against U.S. Capitol Police protectees, and other crimes, and our interagency, our intelligence and interagency coordination division, which gathers and disseminates intelligence information internally and externally to promote the safety of members of Congress and Capitol grounds. It's important to note the U.S. Capitol Police mission is to protect members of Congress, staff, visitors, and the Congressional grounds from crime, disruption, and terrorism. With the increase in crimes in Washington, D.C., the United States Capitol Police is continuing its 100% dedication to carry out its mission. The men and women of Capitol Police come to work daily, trained, prepared, in uniform of the day, with their gear in hand and also other gear ready to meet the missions. Intelligence information out of my bureau is disseminated at briefings through publications and emails disseminated to employees. Bolos are distributed, and then roll calls are held where officers receive information on daily activities such as events, demonstrations, a 24-hour crime report, and they have the ability to ask questions. In addition to what my colleague mentioned about our operational plans that we have on Capitol Police, within our bureau, we have agents that's out daily patrolling to identify and disrupt individuals or groups of intent on direction towards the Congressional community. We have investigative response teams assigned to respond for criminal behavior and suspicious activity and interview those persons. We have intelligence resource specialists who are receiving and sharing information for our safety to the fields in forms of bulletins and bolos. And we are dialed in daily into the D.C. Fusion Center to receive D.C. crime information and updates. And we have task force officers embedded with the FBI to share other forms of intelligence information around the Washington, D.C. area. So with that said, we also work with the House and Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, as they mentioned, security awareness briefings, law enforcement coordinations, and residential assessments. We are the agency that performed those services. I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you very much, Inspector Mitchell. On the Committee on House Administration, we are blessed to have the expertise of Congressman De-Esposito, who served a career in the New York City Police Department. Congressman, do you want to share a few comments?
I just want to say thank you, Chairman, for your leadership. I think that since the beginning of the 118th Congress, we've seen a real increase in communication and coordination, which I think is key to keeping people safe, not only here on Capitol Hill, but in any major area. Communication, coordination is absolutely necessary. As was mentioned by Mr. Beckett, situational awareness is super important. Obviously, we all lead busy lives. Very often we're walking, coming and going, buried in our phones. That is absolutely opportunity for those to strike, so please be careful in situations like that. But more importantly, I think that this and briefings just like this are necessary steps in keeping us all safe. I truly believe that again, the coordination has been excellent, whether it's with the rank and file that are keeping Capitol Hill safe, with the Metro Police, and all of us in Congress. This is a step in the right direction, and I appreciate and applaud your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman De-Esposito. Sometimes when you see a bunch of tough police officers, meaning those to my left and my right, not myself, it's easy to think about crime in the context of law enforcement and statistics. But two people offered to share their personal story, just because I think it's really important to realize that when we're talking about how people are impacted, that it's real people, real members of our community, staff, members, visitors. And so appreciate your courage and being willing to share your story. And if you would, Mr. Will Dixon.
Good morning. My name is Will Dixon. My girlfriend Elise and I work here on Capitol Hill. 7 years ago, we moved here from Western Pennsylvania for college. And prior to last year, we never had any major problems with violent crime in the city.
On Thursday, October 13th of last year, my boyfriend, Will, my roommate, and I were walking home from our usual weeknight dinner spot in Navy Yard, something we've done countless times before. There are only 5 blocks from the restaurant to my house, and on this night, when we were just 2 blocks from my home, an SUV stopped in the middle of the road. One man got out and demanded I hand over my purse, and I did.
Another man got out of the driver's seat. He ran up to me, and he put the barrel of his gun on my chest and demanded I hand over my phone and wallet. I complied, and after that, he ran up to our friend and held his gun to her head and demanded the same. She complied, and they ran back to the SUV, and as they sped away, we began sprinting back to the house.
A man was walking his dog nearby, and I begged for him to call 911. The local D.C. police were quick to respond, and Capitol Police were helpful to our case. The police on scene told us the men who robbed us did the same thing to 3 or 4 other people in Navy Yard that same night.
The weeks after were challenging. In our minds, we did everything right. It was not too late. we were in our neighborhood that we know well, and we were in a group. I think sometimes you hear all these stories about how so much crime is organized, and you convince yourself that it's not going to happen to me. I don't put myself in bad situations. But it really can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time, for seemingly no reason at all. And I say that not to scare people, but to spread awareness of a fact that we learned the hard way.
The day after our robbery, Will was adamant that we walk around the block where it happened so that we wouldn't be afraid in our own neighborhood. I was encouraged by colleagues to seek help following our robbery. The Senate Employee Assistance Program was extremely helpful, and I was grateful to the staff for assisting me during that time. I do not walk at night by myself, and generally we try to limit how much we walk at night in D.C. At the same time, it's important that you don't let crime become a reason to not live your life. There are several precautions you can take to make yourself safer on a daily basis. You can turn on your location settings on your devices and share with family and friends. I follow updates from Capitol Police, Metro Police, and local crime reporters on social media to know what's going on in my neighborhood. And if you find yourself in a situation like ours, please comply. Items are replaceable, but your life is not. Lastly, we have been open to speaking about our robbery so that others in our community can learn from our experience and take precautions in their own life.
Thank you to Chairman Stile and to the House Administration Committee for holding this briefing and raising awareness in the Capitol community to an issue that really could impact any of us.
Elise Stibick, Will Dixon, thank you very much for the courage to share your story. When we opened today's hearing, I asked how many people know someone who's a victim of a crime. Every one of you who raised your hand, you have a friend like Will and Elise who have been personally impacted, and often there's physical violence involved, but the mental trauma that's connected to this is incredibly significant, and it alters how people live their lives. It's why the crime in Washington, D.C. is of such significant concern to myself, to other policymakers, because it's impacting visitors that come to our nation's capital that deserve to feel safe. It's impacting Capitol Hill staff that deserve to be safe. It impacts members. As we all know, there's stories of members who've been impacted by what I'm going to call random crime in Washington, D.C. Let's turn, if I can, to you, Mr. Pemberton, D.C. Union Chief, about what you're seeing in Washington, D.C. We've heard a lot about how your men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department coordinate with U.S. Capitol Police, with Sergeant-at-Arms. But what are you seeing on the ground? What can people be doing to make themselves safe?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Greg Pemberton. I'm the chairman of the D.C. Police Union. I represent about 3,000 police officers that work for the Metropolitan Police Department here in D.C. I've been a member of the MPD for 18 years. For 15 of those 18 years, I've been a detective assigned to the 7th District, working in Southeast, specifically focused on violent crimes. I think one of the most important parts of this discussion is to kind of understand the crime stats and sort of understand all of these discussions that we're having around crime and the increase in crime. There's a lot of folks out there that will deny it, say that crime is actually down, or one of the old tropes that I kind of hear quite a bit, particularly on social media as well. It's not as bad as it was in the 90s. I've never understood that argument, that at some point in time it was significantly worse, so we should just accept increases in crime as long as they don't go that far. We've seen some very significant reductions in crime over the past 10 years or so, but really over the past 3 or 4, all of those have been erased. And so I brought some slides with me. I just want to talk specifically about crime, and I'm also going to mention where I got these, because these are all publicly available crime stats. And for those of you that are interested in following up, I've heard some other folks say that they follow these stats, and it is important to be aware of what's going on. This page here is from the Metropolitan Police Department website, mpdc.dc.gov. There's a tab there called Crime Data at a Glance. It updates every 24 hours with the current crime stats, and it compares year-to-date crime stats with where they were last year. This one I actually pulled on Friday, September 15th, but as you can see, homicide, we were at 190 on Friday, which is a 28% increase over last year. Robbery was up 67% with almost 2,500 robberies in the city. Violent crime total 3,800, which is a 39% increase over the year prior. Motor vehicle theft has doubled, and property crime is up 26%. And when you look at all crime, it's up 28%. And those are significant increases, and these are citywide crimes. If we could go to the next slide. This is the 20-year homicide trend, which is also on that same web page, and you can see it's starting in the bottom right. In 2003, we had 248 homicides. That was the last time we saw the city surpass 200 homicides until we got to 2021. And you can see that, and even particularly I'd point out 2012, which was only 88 homicides. There's a significant period of time in the mid-2010s which we were in the low 100s. It's a significant decrease, from where we were the prior 10 years. But then you see when we get to 2019, 2020, 21, and then again 22, surpassing 200 homicides. And as I said in the last slide, we're already at 190. It looks like, unfortunately and tragically, we're going to put both 2021 and 2022 to shame this year. If we could go to the next slide. This is also on the Metropolitan Police Department's website. This is their carjacking dashboard. Again, this data is from Friday. We were at just about 700 carjackings for the year. And on the left, it might be hard to see, but that's a 106% increase over the year prior. That means the number of carjackings in the city has doubled. And you can see the breakdown on the left. Some of the areas in the city have 232% increases, 176% increase in carjackings. These are significant numbers. And the last thing I want to point to on the slide is on the right, that blue bar graph shows carjackings by month going back to 2018. And you can see for 2018, 2019, 2020, a relatively low numbers below 20, below 15 per month. Then you see in the middle of 2020 it starts to grow, and then each year gets significantly worse. The highest number on that chart is June of this year, where there was 190 carjackings in a one-month period in the city of the District of Columbia. If we could go to the next slide here. This is from another public website called the Gun Violence Archive. It's a nonprofit organization that collects gun violence data from all over the country and has a very interactive database. This is looking at the District of Columbia for the past 9 years, going back to 2014, and you can see there's kind of a leveling number, and then in 2020 it sort of jumps up, and the numbers are pretty alarming. 4,300 shootings in that time frame, with over 1,200 murders in that same time frame. But what's important about this is you can see in 2020 there's a pretty significant increase. And if we could go to the next slide. This is again from that same website, and just using the address of Barracks Row, a nearby neighborhood here, just not even a mile away. It shows you the number of crimes that have occurred in a 1 mile radius. Those yellow dots are shootings, the red dots are homicides. And over that same time frame, it says there's been 136 shootings and 36 homicides. And again, looking at the year-by-year data, you can see in 2020 significant increases that have been ramping up over the past few years. And again, you can put any address in here. You put your own address, you put neighborhoods, you can put cities. It will give you a pretty comprehensive look at what crime looks like in your specific area. Next slide, please. This is again from the police department's website. It's publicly available. This is their crime cards section. This is looking at crime in the 1st District, where the U.S. Capitol sits. And what you can see from this data, this is comparing data just in this district to last year. Homicides are up 233%, sexual abuse up 100%, robbery up 70%, violent crime up 48%, and all crime is up 14%. You can see those are pretty significant numbers just for the 1st District, and this is really a microcosm of what it looks like in every district here in the city. Next slide. So the question that I think we're all here to ask is how do we protect ourselves? I think that was the question that was posed to inviting all of the members of the panel up here. And you know, Mr. Beckett mentioned this. You have to be aware of your surroundings. This is the most important thing out there. Walk confidently, directly, at a steady pace. Don't stop and talk to strangers. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by your cell phone. This is the most important. I've investigated robberies for a long time now, and I can tell you there's a lot of victims that talk on the phone, thinking that somehow that brings them security, that the person on the other end of that phone could call for help if something happens. You're going to be distracted talking to that person, and frankly, the person on the other end of that phone is not going to know exactly where you are. They're certainly not going to know what happened. So having that third party call 911 and try to direct police services to you, it never works out how folks imagine. So it's sort of a false sense of security to be on your phone with a significant other or a family member and you're hoping that if something happens that person can somehow get help to you. It never quite works out that way. It's better keep that phone in your pocket, keep those AirPods aside, make sure that people aren't seeing that you have those expensive items on you. Try to travel with others, walk in populated areas, try not to take shortcuts in side streets, especially at night in dark areas. Try to stay where there's other people around. Trust your instincts. Feel something's unusual, try to get out of there. Next slide. If you're using a vehicle, make sure you're parking in well-lit areas, near sidewalks or walkways. Avoid parking near dumpsters or the woods or areas where you can't see what's around your vehicle when you get out, or when you return back to your vehicle, you can't be aware of what's happening there. Don't leave any valuables in your car in plain view. This one seems obvious, but the number of theft from autos that we deal with on an annual basis is in the thousands, and typically people have left a cell phone or a laptop or even just a book bag on their seat. People will break a window to find out if there's something valuable in there. So make sure there's nothing visible in your car when you park it and lock it. Try to park in garages. If you have to leave your key with an attendant, don't leave your entire key ring with them so that people have access to your house keys or any other security issues. Even if you're rushed, look around, stay alert, make sure you take the time to figure out who's around you, and always trust your instincts again. One thing I say is that when you're walking around, and if you're paying attention, what I've learned talking to dozens, if not hundreds, of robbery suspects over the years is that they're looking to take advantage of someone by surprise, right? They want to get the drop on someone, if you will. They don't want you to be paying attention. And if you have your head on a swivel and you're making eye contact, people are going to be a lot less reluctant to make a victim out of you because you've seen them, you've interacted with them even by just glancing at them. So it's better to be sort of aware and focused in your surroundings. Next slide. If you're driving, again, keep your doors locked and your windows up. When you're coming to a stop, try to leave a little bit of gap between you and the car in front of you. If you pull right up on that bumper and something happens, it's very hard to drive out of that situation. So make sure that you're leaving some space around you. I know driving in the city is difficult, but to the extent that you can, try to think about ways that you can get out of a scenario if you had to. Always drive with your doors locked if that's going to prevent somebody from getting in your vehicle at one of these stoplights. And don't stop to assist anyone who appears to be on the side of the road. That's a common ruse to get people to stop their car and get out and leave it running. People can take advantage of there. If you think someone's really it needs assistance, make sure you call 311 or 911 and direct emergency services to help that person. Next slide. So a lot of questions that I get posed is sort of how did we get here? Why did we see this significant increase over the past few years? It really has to do with staffing. Some of the other folks up here have talked about staffing. Right now, this chart goes back about 20 years, but we're at a 50-year low. We haven't seen the number of police officers on this department this low since the early 1970s. Right now, it's about 3,300. That's down 500 from where it was in 2020. If you could go to the next slide. This is a chart that we came up with as a little rudimentary. I apologize, but it's the red line is the number of homicides and the blue line is the number of police. You can see when the blue line is low, the red line is up, and that's sort of consistent, and that's what we're seeing right now. We don't have the right number of police officers to respond to these calls. We don't have the right number of detectives to investigate them and present those warrants, and that's what's causing a lot of this recidivism and crime uptakes. Next slide, please. This one might be a little bit harder to read. This is staffing reports. I'll just sort of summarize. The one on the left is a staffing report from the 1st District from 5 years ago, September 5th of 2018. The one on the right is September 6th of 2023. And the difference in police officers there is about 100. We're about 100 less police officers in this district than there was 5 years ago. And if you can imagine, there's not even 100 people in this room. If that number of police officers you lost from patrolling a specific area, even as one as small as this, there's a significant impact on our ability to address those kind of crimes and respond and get out there and investigate those cases. Next slide. This is just an advocacy page that our union has, enoughisenoughdc.com. If people want to learn more about kind of the arguments that we have about fixing this, that's a place they can go. And then I believe the last slide is just our contact information. So I'll turn it back over to Chairman Stile, but the short version here is that we really need to do something broad about public safety in the city, and particularly as it applies to staffing and manpower for law enforcement. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pemberton. We're going to open it up to questions from the audience in just a moment. But the statistics you just shared are incredibly sobering, that crime is on the rise in Washington, D.C., and anyone you talk to in the city, they don't feel safe in the manner that I think they deserve. And you shared one issue that's changed, and that's the staffing level. But Republicans in the House of Representatives had to step up after Washington, D.C.'s leadership passed their soft on crime bill. We had to act to nullify that legislation, and it was actually signed by President Biden because even Democrats in Washington, D.C. know how bad the problem is here. You identified the staffing level. What else has changed, in your professional opinion?
Yeah, thank you. So the main problem that we're dealing with right now is we have a city council that's gone a little bit rogue when it comes to law enforcement. The District of Columbia City Council passed a bill in 2020 called the Comprehensive Policing and Justice Reform Act. This bill has a 26 subtitle, 84-page bill that completely hampers police officers' ability to go out and do their job and creates completely onerous provisions for officers. It just makes it for an environment that people do not want to work in, which is the main catalyst for why we've lost 1,200 police officers and only been able to replace about half that over that same time frame. But the bill in and of itself, without getting into the granular details of it, is really onerous and absolutely eliminates police officers' ability to do their job. We've tried to appeal to them to see if we can get some amendments to that bill or some portions of it repealed. It does not seem like they have any interest in doing that.
Thank you very much. Inspector Erickson or Inspector Mitchell, or anybody can jump in on this. But one of the things that we've worked hard from the Committee on House Administration is to make sure that U.S. Capitol Police has the resources they need to be able to accomplish their mission. But also at the same time, you work kind of hand in glove with the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. How does the increased crime in Washington, D.C. impact U.S. Capitol Police in accomplishing your mission?
Thanks. I'll take that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like Greg said earlier, Capitol Hill.
Pull that mic nice and close.
As Greg mentioned earlier, Capitol Hill falls into the 1st District of Washington. And he put a slide up there to show the significant amount of crime that increased in the 1st District, and he just talked about losing over 100 officers in that area. What that does is it forces us to ask for more resources so we can go into that extended jurisdiction to assist MPD. All of our vehicles, our marked vehicles, have MPD radios in the car. So like I said earlier, we can hear stuff coming, anything MPD is working on, we can go out to assist them. It has become a great partnership over the years, but certainly over the last few years it's been quite a drain on our resources for our patrol divisions. Also, many of the staff here know that we do support a lot of member staff events, from the Congressional baseball game to the softball game to Congressional football game, and events within the city. And with everything going on, it does cause an increase of staffing to support and keep the stakeholders and the visitors of them events all safe.
Thank you very much. Did you want to add, Inspector Mitchell?
Chairman, hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
I got you.
All right. So as we know that the Capitol Police is responsible for the safety of 535 members of Congress, and many of them have residence here within the Washington, D.C. area, as well as their homes back in the district. Our staffing and our approvals just makes it difficult for us to support the protection of efforts throughout their entire Washington, D.C. In the news most recently on February 9th of this year, a member of Congress was assaulted while in her apartment complex in the elevator located in Northeast Washington, D.C., outside of Capitol grounds. And also in March 25th of this year, a staffer while walking in the 1300 block of H Street was stabbed by a subject in that particular area here. Our crime staffs, you gave some of yours. This year, U.S. Capitol Police has made 412 arrests. That's within our primary and extended jurisdiction. Our extended jurisdiction, of course, is with Washington, D.C., in which we have a great partnership with Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police. We've had 29 guns that were seized as a result of arrests, as well as 36 arrests for unauthorized use of vehicles within Washington, D.C. in our primary and extended jurisdiction. So with those totals there, it takes an effort between all of our law enforcement and our partnerships with Washington DC Police to ensure the members of Congress are safe, the staff are safe, and the Washington, D.C. community area.
Thank you. If I can just follow up, you said you've done over 400 arrests over the last year. What types of crimes are you seeing? Just to paint a picture for that, is that somebody that's on the Capitol grounds not obeying, or is this somebody that's engaged in more traditional street crime?
More traditional street crime. Currently, we're seeing assault with dangerous weapons. We're seeing simple assaults, domestic violence or robberies, whether it's with stealth gun or a knife, and as well as, again, the unauthorized use of vehicles, which consist of carjackings as well as thefts from vehicles in which we apprehend the subject driving that vehicle that was stolen.
Thank you very much. I mean, we saw the stats. I mean, about rough math, 20 to 25 cars are stolen a day in Washington, D.C., and 2 to 3 of those are the result of a carjacking. So it's completely logical to understand how that overflows into the perimeter that U.S. Capitol Police is protecting. Mr. Cook, do you just want to maybe give a little picture of what happens when this type of request comes in?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So prior to my role with the House Sergeant at Arms, I was with the Capitol Police for many years. And, one of the things as, part of my job, but also, just to be in tune, I have a police radio that's in my office, and it was Thursday or Friday of last week. There was a call for service that went out from Metropolitan Police Department for an officer in trouble. And it was over, I believe, off of North Capitol Street, somewhere over on the north side, that Capitol Police, it might not have been one of their officers, but they're sure going to come running. And so all of those resources flooding off of the hill, it just creates a liability here. And so those, resources that are drawn away just make it more dangerous for, any other potential threat actors, anything else that could happen here. And while, in general, compared to the rest of the city, Capitol Hill may be relatively safer, the Capitol campus can't necessarily operate on an island. So a lot of that crossover in the extended jurisdiction with Capitol Police and MPD, it does draw resources. Like I mentioned earlier, threats against members of Congress are only going up. Threats to the Capitol campus are only going up. And in order to do their job effectively, Capitol Police needs those resources to be able to help Metropolitan Police. Capitol Police, I believe right now is authorized 2,126 officers. They're just about 2,000, so they're operating a couple hundred short now with the tasking and what's expected of them just being astronomical. The men and women of Capitol Police, the amount of hours that they work in overtime just to meet the bare minimum, it's astounding. How they're able to function sometimes just to keep the community, members and staff safe, it's something to be applauded. They have around 2,000. They probably need 500 more than that, and that would probably be a start. But so I can't appreciate enough Inspector Erickson, Inspector Mitchell, Officer Pemberton, appreciate everything that they do. One last thing that I forgot to plug earlier, anything that the House Sergeant at Arms can do to support staff, to support your members or anyone in the public, 202-225-1000 is the Office of Police Services, police.services@mail.house.gov. Whether it's security briefings, whether it's trying to facilitate security for members, anything that we can do for staff to support, we urge you to reach out, and we're here to do anything we can to support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I was going to open up to questions from the audience, so we have time for probably one or two, but I also saw Congressman Rutherford slide in with us. If you want to add any comments or ask a question, but I appreciate you coming and joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. One thing that I'd like to ask the inspectors with MPD, how can these folks help you address the issue of the ordinances, those things? Look, we all live here. We can talk to these folks, these commissioners and others. Just like our constituents reach out to us, we need to be reaching out to these people. So my question would be, and I know this is off the cuff, but can you talk a little bit about the clearance rate on your violent crime and how they are being prosecuted or not being prosecuted? Because your recidivism rate drives a lot of this.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So just to put things in perspective, for between 2008 and 2018, that 10-year period, the police department averaged about 40 or 45,000 arrests per year. Since then, we've been averaging 15,000 arrests per year. That just goes to show you the impact that some of this legislation has had on our inability to actually put handcuffs on bad guys and bring them down to courts. But one of the things you touched on, which is really important, is that even when we're doing that, even when the men and women are going out and they're making arrests, they're typing warrants, they're investigating, they're finding probable cause on these suspects, we bring these cases down to the U.S. Attorney's Office here in D.C. That's who the prosecutor for adult crimes is. 2/3 of those cases are being what we call no-papered, which means that they're not bringing any charges at all. They're dismissing the case at intake. So only 1/3 of those arrests that we're talking about are actually getting charges brought and then making their way into the courtroom. But even then, we have another problem with D.C. judges in terms of actually getting convictions in those cases. So the entire ecosystem is really broken. And the reason it's broken is because our city council has legislated it to be broken. And until citizens who live and work in the District of Columbia tell the city council to act like an adult and actually take public safety seriously and hold criminals accountable, particularly violent criminals accountable, I don't think there's going to be any change. I think that was a very good question. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask this, if the House administration could provide the phone numbers, the office numbers for those city council members that we need to talk to, quite frankly, I don't know who they are, but I'd like to know. And if we could put that out to the rest of the Hill, we need to start calling them and talking to them about what's going on, not just on the Hill, but in the entire district area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Rutherford. You're exactly right. I mean, these are political decisions that are being made that have a huge impact on visitors and staff and members of Capitol Hill. We heard from two people who had the courage to stand up to share what a crime feels like to them, but that's the case with every single statistic that Mr. Pemberton put up on the board. Every single statistic that was up on that board is a story that these two shared, and very easily could have been a more horrific incident. Not that yours wasn't horrific, but it could have been worse. When we see the number of murders in Washington, D.C., when we see violent assaults, sexual assaults, we see crimes taking place in our community, these are visitors from Washington, D.C. that might be coming from my home state of Wisconsin or your home state in New York City, coming to their nation's capital. They deserve to feel safe here. The same way staff members who are serving as public servants deserve to feel safe when they come to work, when they go home, when they go out to dinner at night a few blocks from their home. And the policies that have been put in place in Washington, D.C., the soft on crime policies, the anti-police rhetoric, are having a direct result in the increased crime that we see here in Washington, D.C. It's why we as Republicans in the House of Representatives work to nullify the soft on crime policies that the D.C. City Council was trying to move forward. Many of our colleagues voted against that, and ultimately President Biden would sign that, knowing that you had to nullify some of the laws that are being put forward in Washington, D.C., because it is having a direct connection with this significant increase in crime in our nation's capital that's right here on Capitol Hill. It's impacting staff members, it's blocks off of this community, and that crime is directly impacting the ability of U.S. Capitol Police, the Sergeant at Arms office, to be able to do their job because their resources are being drawn to addressing traditional street crime rather than the core mission of the Sergeant at Arms office and the U.S. Capitol Police office. And so I appreciate your question. It's spot on, and we'll do as you suggest. We're coming to the top of the hour. I want to give an opportunity for any of our panelists to make a final closing remark, and then I'll wrap up the program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For coming here and giving us an opportunity to speak, to kind of give an overview of where things are at right now. As you hear from everybody, it's a big draw on staffing and manpower. But I appreciate the support from the Sergeant of Arms and House Administration in this. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this goes without saying, and we'll probably hear it all the time, but if you see something, say something. Again, see something, say something. You can reach Capitol Police at crime tips at US Capitol Police, at USCP, I'm sorry, crime tips at uscp.gov or threats at uscp.gov. Also, I noticed there are a lot of staffers here in the area. We did give a lot of information about being aware of your surroundings, but I also like to offer that when you're off from work, please remove your ID when you're leaving from work. Having your ID on could make you a subject of interest to subjects concerning your employment that may want to gain information from you. So please remove that from your outer garment, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Chairman Stile for having this briefing and bringing us all in here. It's a very important topic. It's a very important topic to the rank and file. Our job that we sign up for is to go out, protect these communities, to protect people. It's very frustrating for us to put on a uniform every day and go out and not be able to help people like that. So, you know, we're more than willing to work with everybody here and all the parties involved. I really appreciate everyone on this panel. But if as the Congressman stated, if you guys could take a look at what's going on in the City Council, that's what's really affecting our ability to do this. But thank you all very much for coming.
I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, Congressman D'Esposito, for your leadership on this, bringing the matter to the forefront here. I'd like to thank Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police, the folks here and all the people that they represent for everything they do every day. And for all staff members here, anyone in the public, please help us help you. We want to make sure that these resources are there, but we can't do that if you don't, bring it forward and, seek that help, seek that assistance, and please, support the officers that are out there every day, whether it be through policy or through, just the support that each one of you gives them. But thank you for having us here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everyone on the panel, thank you so much for the partnerships. And to everyone out there, sorry, to all you here in the audience, we're here for you. Understand that the Sergeant at Arms is always available. Sometimes it feels like that what we do here as a community for security kind of focuses around the member, right? We're here for you as well. So if you have any questions, you want to talk about anything, feel free to give us a call. We're always there. Thank you so much.
First, I just want to say thank you to everyone here on the panel for being here this morning. Obviously, our chairman, thank you again for your leadership. I think what was very important about today's briefing is coming from a state like New York, where I watched as legislation was implemented by our state legislature and our governor, cashless bail, criminal justice reform, and one of the things that happened during that time was there was never coordination with law enforcement, and it's very similar to what happened in D.C. They implemented laws, they implemented legislation, and never once did they speak to the men and women who are actually out on the street each and every day, wrestling guns out of people's hands, putting bad people behind bars. That never happened. And when you hear day in and day out, whether it's the media, whether it's people in D.C., whether it's advocates for either the D.C. crime legislation or things like cashless bail in New York City, and they say crime is down, we saw the numbers. Crime is not down. Crime is out of control. And the people, the men and women who are out on the street each and every day are doing the best that they can with the resources that they have available. And like Chad mentioned, when you're out there and you see either a D.C. police officer or a Capitol police officer, say thank you. As someone who's worn the uniform, it goes a long way. It goes a long way to know that someone stopped to take a minute to say thank you and that they're appreciated. So, Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman D'Esposito. Appreciate everybody being here. The fact that we have a full room in the Committee on House Administration tells you how important this is to the Capitol Hill community to make sure that we are keeping everyone safe. You have my commitment that I'm going to continue to work to make sure that visitors, that staff, that members feel safe and are safe when working or visiting Capitol Hill. With the officers to my left and to my right, thank you for what you do. And thank you to all the men and women that wake up in the morning, put a badge over their heart, are committed to answering the call, not knowing the call that's going to come in. And it's a big deal that you all step up to help keep this community safe. There's more work to be done, but I appreciate you being here today, and this concludes our briefing. Thank you, everyone.